All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Four Ounce Fanatic channel. Today, we will be breaking down this weekend's fight card, Carlos Ulberg versus Dominic Reyes in Perth. And without further ado, let's get it started. First fight of the night, Brando Pericic versus Alicia Ellison. Now, when I first saw this fight be announced, I thought to myself, why is Brando Pericic fighting a woman? However, Alicia Ellison is a male. He's 5-1. Both guys making their debut in the UFC. I believe this fight was originally scheduled for week 3 of Dana White's Contender Series, but nonetheless, it's been moved to this card for reasons unknown. Brando Pericic, he's a CKB fighter, 4-1 professionally. He's been very active in the last 18 months, having 4 fights, 3 wins. He's a big physical heavyweight. He's 6'5", 255 pounds. Both guys are brawlers. I believe all of their wins are first round finishes, mostly knockouts. Both guys' losses are by submission, so you can tell they're mainly striker type fighters. Big meaty hooks. I've written that down. Big meaty hooks. Both guys throw big punches, and they'll be looking to finish the fight early. My prediction for this fight is that it won't go to the second round, and I'm going to pick Brando Pericic by round 1 KO. Moving on to the second fight of the night, Michelle Montague versus Luana Carolina. Now, this is Michelle Montague's UFC debut. She's coming from the PFL. She's the first female fighter from New Zealand, so that's quite exciting for the scene. She is making her bantamweight debut. She was a featherweight in PFL. She's quite big for the weight class, I must say. She's 5'9", trains at ATT with Kayla Harrison. She's a strong grappler. All 6 of her wins by rear naked choke, so you can see that really shows in her record as well. She's not a great striker, but she is quite aggressive on the front foot, and she will take a shot to give one back. Luana Carolina, primarily a striker, making her bantamweight debut as well, but she's coming up from 125, so I think there will be a big physicality advantage when it comes to the grappling. But I think she's going to have a big speed advantage in the striking, obviously, lighter man skill or lighter woman skill. And I think she's going to be able to defend the takedown of Montague, keep the fight on the feet, and win by a close fight. I think she's going to get taken down a few times, but I do think she will win the fight by decision. Moving on to the third fight of the night, Jamie Mullarkey. Jamie Mullarkey, let me tell you about this guy. Please don't sue me bedtime. Jamie Mullarkey versus Rolando Bedoya. Mullarkey is a pretty bang average 155er. He's a win-loss guy. He's quite a technical striker, I would have to say. Straight shots, struggles on the back foot, especially against big aggressive guys such as Bedoya, who is your typical shooter box fighter. Big hooks, throws a lot of kicks, will get taken down, but will try and look for submissions off his back. He's all offense, no defense, essentially. And that's kind of showed in his 3 fights in the UFC. He's 0-3. He's lost to Chaos Williams, Song Kenan, and recently lost to Jay Herbert in his 155 debut. He will have a big power advantage coming down from 170 against Mullarkey. He will be a lot slower. However, I am picking Rolando Bedoya to get this one done with a second round TKO. As I said earlier, he is 0-3 in the UFC, and this is his last chance to, win a fight in the UFC, make a big impression. And I think he will actually be able to do that, unfortunately, despite the fact that I am biased towards Aussie and New Zealand fighters. So yeah, Rolando Bedoya, round 2 KO. Moving on to the fourth fight of the night, Colby Thickness versus Josias Musasa. Both guys are coming off losses, both in the UFC debut. However, the level of competition that they faced in their debuts was quite a bit of a jump. Thickness losing to Ilia Toporia's brother Alexandre Topuria, and Musasa to Carlos Ferreira, who is a pretty low-level bantamweight who I really was surprised that he lost to. I thought he was going to get the KO, as has Musasa has 7 wins by KO out of his 8. Um, but yeah, Colby Thickness, strong grappler, decent striker, trains with Volkanovski, pretty well-rounded. Musasa, he's a very explosive striker. He's quite physical. But I don't think the level of competition that he's been facing in the African regional scene has been quite as high as Thickness's. So I think Thickness is going to get this done via decision. He's going to grapple. He's going to get him to the ground. He's going to look to get submissions. I could see him pulling off a round 2 or 3 submission. But I do think he will struggle with the speed and explosivity of Musasa when it comes to the striking. We did see that in his debut against Topuria. But yeah, I do think Thickness will win by decision or late submission. Moving on to the 5th fight of the night, Cameron Ralston, the battle giraffe himself, taking on Andre Petroski. This is Ralston's debut. He just come off an impressive KO on the Contender Series a few weeks ago. Super tall middleweight. I believe he's 6'4", 6'3". He's also training at he's also fighting at a CKB. He is more of a grappler, however, which is unusual for a CKB fighter. Dan Hooker said he was the most well-rounded guy in the gym, which is pretty high praise, thinking about who trains at that gym. He did lose to Torres Finney, I believe, a year ago in the last year's Contender Series, who is a shorter, more powerful wrestler. And Petroski is also that. He's a shorter, more powerful wrestler. He's been very active lately. I think he's had 2 or 3 fights this year already. So that might show. He might show a bit of wear and tear. He may be in incredible shape. I could be wrong. I think Petroski is going to win this fight by 29-28 decision. However, he has struggled against aggressive strikers. Most of his losses are to guys who are powerful strikers, such as Michel Pereira, Edmund Shabazian. But I don't think Ralston is aggressive enough, and he doesn't really have that knockout power to be able to finish the fight, which is the only way I could see him winning. I'm probably going to regret this, but I am going to pick Petroski by 29-28 decision. I think he's going to get some takedowns. I think Ralston's going to be able to get back up, land some long-range strikes, but I do think Petroski will win by 29-28 decision. Fight number 6 of the night. This is a great matchup. Jonathan Mikhailov versus Oban Elliott. Now, if you had told me this fight was being booked a year ago, I would have said Oban Elliott destroys him. However, Jonathan Mikhailov, second fight in the UFC, strong kicks. He really impressed me in his debut against Kevin Jousset, who I thought he was going to lose to. He also had a sick triangle choke. He choked his opponent to sleep on the Contender Series. He's quite well-rounded. He trains with Rob Whittaker. His only loss is to Olden Bates, who was the guy who knocked out Jack Della Maddalena. Just thought that was an interesting stat. Doesn't really mean anything specifically. Oban Elliott, he's also quite well-rounded. He was a prospect until he kind of got dominated in his last fight by Seokon Kyo, I believe his name is. But I'm not sure. Maybe Seokon Kyo is really just that good. We'll have to find out in the future. He does need to work on his takedown defense, so we'll see how he holds up in this fight. However, I do think Mikhailov is going to try and keep it standing. He's going to work him in the clinch, land big body kicks, and yeah, I think it's going to be a very close fight. But I do have Mikhailov winning by split decision, or perhaps a robbery. I'm not too sure, but I do have Jonathan Mikhailov winning this fight. Fight number 7, Loma Lukbunmi. Well, her real name is Konklak Sufisara. Loma Lukbunmi versus Alexa Tainara. She made her debut against Molly McCann, got a first round submission, retired Molly McCann. I haven't seen much from her, as she's only had about 4 minutes in the octagon so far. she did show some solid striking against McCann, big leg kicks. She was quite patient, strong top control, good jiu-jitsu. She's always looking to finish the fight when it gets to the ground. She's quite funny, strong personality, which the UFC is always looking for. So I think if she gets an impressive win here, they will try to push her up, possibly give her a top 15 opponent. Actually, I do believe Bunmi is ranked number 15 or 14. But yeah, I do think if she wins, they're going to get her a top 10 opponent for sure. But yeah, I've got, Loma Bunmi, Muay Thai fighter. She hasn't got any KO wins in the UFC. She's been submitted before. She's got wins against some lower level strawweights. Her best win is Bruna Brazil, which is, not a bad win. She's got powerful kicks, likes to feint. She's a point fighter. She's a standard Muay Thai point fighter. She likes to win by 30-27, 29-28 decision. She does struggle against wrestlers. So I do have Alexa Tainara by submission round 2 or 3. So that's my prediction. Late submission for Alexa Tainara, and she gets a top 10 opponent next. Moving on to fight number 8, Navajo Sterling versus Rodolfo Bellato. Now, this is an interesting matchup. Navajo Sterling, obviously another CKB fighter on this card. I believe there's about 5 or 6 of them in this card from CKB. He's undefeated, still quite inexperienced though. Powerful puncher, although he doesn't always capitalize on moments where he's hurt his opponents. We saw that fight against Ivan Urslan, and I've actually forgotten who he fought in his day. Tuco Tokos. He fought Tuco Tokos in his debut, who's a pretty awful light heavyweight. Realistically, he could have finished both fights. I think it's just the experience. Rodolfo Bellato, he's primarily a boxer, quite aggressive, but he is susceptible to being knocked out. Both of his knockout losses are to Vitor Petrino. He has a crazy comeback win in his UFC debut against Ihor Potieria. He's had 2 weird fights, however, in the last 2 of his fights against Paul Craig and Jimmy Crute. There was the draw with the Crute, and then he had that strange kind of no contest where people thought he was faking it, but he said he wasn't. So he kind of needs to right the ship here against Navajo Sterling. But I do think Sterling's going to get the job done by decision. I could see a late TKO as Rodolfo Bellato. He is quite susceptible to being knocked out. But yeah, I've got Sterling by decision. He fights like a lower level version of Adesanya. So yeah, I do think he's going to get the win. Fight number 9, Justin Taffa versus Louis Sutherland. Taffa, he's Mark Hunt 2.0. He's a brawler. He's a big, meaty Samoan. Big Uso. He's a killer be killed fighter. And he's making Louis Sutherland is making his debut against the man himself, who is, I believe he trains with Tom Espinal. He's built like a brick shithouse. He's got 8 wins by KO. He's a powerful striker, but he's quite technical for the division of the heavyweights. I think he's going to get a round 1 KO. I'm sorry, Justin, I love you, but I think Louis Sutherland's going to get this one done by round 1 KO. Moving on to fight number 10 of the night, we've got Tom Nolan versus Charlie Campbell. Tom Nolan, he's a very tall 155er, 6'3", sharp striker. He likes to use his long-range weapons, jab, front teep, knee, uses his range well, and he's coming up against Charlie Campbell, who is an aggressive striker that did get the better of him when he lost to Chris Duncan on Dana White's Contender Series. He hurt him really bad, came forward, no defense, and he got knocked out. But I do think he's matured quite a bit since then. He does still like to use his forward pressure, switches stances a lot. He got a nice finish of Alex Reyes in his UFC debut in round 1. Nolan has struggled with shorter, more aggressive strikers in the past. He only has 1 loss, so I'm really just highlighting that loss where he got knocked out by Nicholas Mota. You could see he wasn't really prepared for that, and he wasn't prepared for the speed and the power of Mota. So, but I do think he's improved a lot since that fight. I believe it was 2 years ago. He's still very young, 25 years old. But I do have Nolan by decision or Charlie Campbell getting a round 2 TKO. I'm very 50-50 about this. I'm going to have to make a decision. I've got Nolan. Actually, no, I've got Charlie Campbell by round 2 TKO. I think he's a bit more experienced than Nolan, a bit older, and he trains out of a good camp, the Sierra Longo team. So I do think he's going to get this done. I think he's going to possibly look to get a takedown, but mostly strike on the feet, and he's going to win by late TKO, round 2 or 3. Fight number 11 is Jake Matthews versus Neil Magny. Mate, Jake Matthews, he's the fucking guy, mate. Seriously though, Jake Matthews, he's well-rounded. He's a good boxer. He's on a 3-fight win streak. He's still only 31 years old, and he's been in the UFC for 10 years. So I don't think he's matured a lot as a fighter in his tenure at the company, especially in the last 2 to 3 years. Most losses are by submission. He struggles against grapplers. So yeah, he's going up against Neil Magny, who has a pretty insane resume. Certified Unk. He's a certified Unk. He's got an insane resume. He's pretty much been fighting top 15 guys for about 10 years. He's got a strong clinch, rangy striker. You all know what the deal is with Magny. He's a win-loss guy. Obviously, most of his losses are to high-level strikers, Prates, Morales, Gary, Rakhmonov, guys like that. But yeah, I don't think Jake Matthews is as high of a level striker as those guys. Although he did do pretty well against Morales, he lost by decision, and Magny got knocked out in about 3 minutes. But as they say, MMA maths doesn't work, and I've got Neil Magny winning by decision, probably a 29-28. I think it'll be a fairly close fight, but I do think his grappling is a lot better than Matthews, and he's going to show his experience in this fight. And yeah, Neil Magny, 29-28 decision. Featured fight of the night, Jimmy Crute versus Ivan Erslan. Jimmy Crute, yeah, he's had 2 draws in his last 4 fights, which is an interesting stat. And I think it just shows that he is a bit of a slow starter, or he tends to drop around, come back later on. He's usually, with the 2 draws he's had against Minifield and Bellato, he's kind of lost the first round and then come back later on in the fight. But yeah, he is a slow starter. He's definitely a slow starter. Most of his losses are in round 1, losing to guys like Misha Serkinov, Jamal Hill, guys like that. So I think Ivan Erslan needs to capitalize on that if he wants to get the job done. But Jimmy Crute is a really good jiu-jitsu guy. He's got top pressure. He's always looking to finish when it goes to the ground. He had a really nice armbar in his last fight against Marcin Preknio. And I think his grappling is going to be on display in this fight. Ivan Erslan, he's a boxer. This is an age-old striker versus grappler matchup. He's a boxer. But he will be coming out aggressive as he's lost his first 2 fights in the UFC. So I think he's going to look to make a big statement here, finishing Jimmy Crute. Yeah, he does struggle against wrestlers/grapplers. Most of his losses are from guys mostly outside the UFC. Yeah, he lost to Iwan Kutalab in his debut, who's primarily a wrestler. And I just think Crute's going to be able to get the fight to the ground and pretty much dominate. So yeah, I do have Jimmy Crute round 2 submission. Yeah, I do think he's going to start slow, however, in round 1, and he's going to struggle with the boxing pressure of Erslan, but I do think he will get the fight to the ground and get a nice submission win. Moving on to the co-main event, which is, this is probably one of the lowest level, no disrespect to these two, but this is probably one of the lowest level co-main events in Fight Night history. I do know that the Junior Tafa versus Ibo Aslan fight was cancelled, which even then is not a great co-main. However, Jack Jenkins, he's from Australia, fighting in front of his home crowd. So yeah, it's an interesting fight. Yeah, Jack Jenkins, hard leg kicks, good Muay Thai striker. He's got 4 losses, 3 of them are by submission, so he definitely has a deficiency when it comes to the grappling. Um, yeah. If you give him a striker like Tavares, though, he is going to put on a show. Yeah, he'll probably win by decision or late TKO. I think he's had, some late wins, some late knockouts against guys like Herbert Burns, and I could be wrong, but I believe Jamal Emmers he finished. No, sorry, that was a decision. But yeah, I do think if he's going to win, it's going to be a round 3 TKO or a decision. Ramon Tavares, this is his first fight at 145 in the UFC. He's going to have a speed advantage, I do think, when it comes to the striking. He's pretty inactive, though, and I don't really believe in ring rust, but I do think um, he's going to do, I do think he's going to have a good chance in this fight when it comes to the striking. I do think if he's looking to take the fight to the mat, he is going to win. He hasn't fought the highest level comp at bantamweight. He did miss weight against Davey Grant. He still got dominated. So I do have Jack Jenkins winning by decision. Now, the main event of the evening, Carlos Ulberg versus Dominic Reyes. This is a very interesting fight. Carlos Ulberg, super hot streak. He's on an 8-fight win streak in the UFC. He's got a lot of momentum behind him. Obviously, another CKB fighter. I do think when it comes to guys outside of the top 15, he can finish them quite easily. But when it comes to top 15 guys, he is going to win by a close 29-28 decision, or a 48-47 decision in this case. Had a close fight with Jan Blachowicz. And before that, I believe it was Volkan Oezdemir. He didn't finish them, but he was show impressive striking, good footwork. You know the deal with Ulberg. Good counter striker. He relies on his step back left hook and his leg kick a lot. But hey, if it's broke, don't fix it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Excuse me. And he's coming up against Dominic Reyes. Obviously, beat John Jones, as we all know. Had a very close fight with him. He's got quite a similar style to Ulberg. He's got, powerful punches. He's a bit more of a front foot kind of guy. He's not really waiting for you to come forward and counter strike. He is more aggressive on the front foot. He's got good kicks. He's very athletic, light heavyweight. He's also on a win streak, although only 3 fights, but they've all been by KO. It's going to be a very close fight. If Ulberg is able to counter-strike and let Reyes come to him, which I do think will happen in spots, I do think he is going to win. But however, I do think Reyes is a much better grappler. Whether that is going to be implemented in the fight by him, I'm not too sure. But I do think that Dominic Reyes, like I said, is a better wrestler. I think he'll get a few takedowns in the fight. Or he'll attempt, I do think he'll attempt a few takedowns in the fight, but Ulberg's is going to be able to stuff them, kind of land his counter shot, land his leg kick. So I do think it's going to be a very close fight, and I've got Carlos Ulberg winning by split decision, or potentially a late KO, late TKO, round 4, maybe round 3, something like that, as Reyes is quite aggressive on the front foot, as I mentioned earlier. So I could see Ulberg capitalizing on that. But I do have Carlos Ulberg winning by a close decision. It's going to be a close fight. But yeah, that is my breakdown and picks for Carlos Ulberg versus Dominic Reyes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the channel. Please subscribe, like, let me know what you thought of the video down in the comments, and I will see you in the next one.